Jim Justice files for the U.S. Senate to run against Joe Manchin in West Virginia. So we'll be talking about the campaign, what this means for the Senate, and where we go with that. In other news, Ron DeSantis signs a public nuisance law into effect, which bans certain portions of free speech. There are some good things in this bill, but the majority of it is very, very, very dystopian. But we'll talk about that then. Of course, why the GOP will never change no matter who it is that supports them. Tucker Carlson gives his first address after leaving Fox News, and it garners almost 19 million views, so we'll watch that. We'll go over what's happening with that and where that goes. And Biden White House actually comes back out and starts to say, hey, with this bill passing, maybe we do need to come back down to the table. So it's unlikely, but we'll still talk about it and see what's going on with that. Plus, we have things that I like and things that I hate at the bottom of the show today. And yes, I will be breaking my silence on the Crowder thing. So strap yourselves in, get a snack, and gather in some friends and family to discuss in the live chat. And we will be talking about all of this and more over here on Contemporary. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. I don't know if any of you guys have Steam that are watching this right now. I gotta say what's going on with that too, and we'll probably see it pop up again in the middle of the live stream here. Probably just the little alert that we have an update pending, but I know it probably won't pop up in the midst of things because we'll be switching between web pages and tabs throughout the rest of the show here. But yeah, this is like the third time it's updated itself. The update popped up while we were on last night, and I ran the update for it after we got off air. And then, like, as soon as I got back home and closed everything back out, like the main window and everything else, it popped me up with another update. So I did that and I closed it out again, and just about there again at the end of it, it popped me up with yet another update. So it's updated 4 times in the last 3 days. So I don't know if they're just doing a major overhaul, if there's a big glitch they're trying to catch with the Steam store or anything. I don't buy a whole lot over there, even though I should probably go and buy more, but you know, it just pops up in the middle. It's just like with the AVG update too. It pops up right in the middle of your live stream and puts it right up on the front of your screen or right down in the corner. Like, I don't mind the Steam where it says the Apex Legends when I see that Midget B is, with the alerts for your friends where it says Midget B is playing Apex Legends or something, but like when it brings up a big, I'm pointing to my screen like you guys actually can see where I'm pointing right now, but yeah, when it brings up the great big one in the bottom corner of the screen, well, that's where, you know, especially again, when you're trying to do a live stream right now. Maybe I'm just boomer tech and I have absolutely no idea how to shut some of the stuff off here, but anyway, that's enough tech talk for the day. Let's get the live chat up here. Let's get the Rumble up here. And let's see what is going on in the news for the day. And we are going to, well, before we get started, We've got a lot to go over here today. We've got the Florida law. That's going to be, I think, the crux of the discussion here. It's another one of those big scattershot days where it's a lot of little stories that are just all over the place. So we've got a little bit of foreign news. We've got Donald Trump making a speech about the transgender thing. We have got Kamala Harris making a speech that nobody can understand. And I've got things I like and things that I hate at the bottom of the show today. So I really hope to see you guys over here for that, because I know I'm going to get ripped for one of the things that I like because it's girly, it's a girl show. Well, I have my reasons for liking it, but we'll be talking about that and more over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more as we bring you a better news and culture experience. That's right. Don't get your news from people who wear suits that cost more than your houses. Get your news from people who are just like you, who have had to make some of the same decisions that you have had to make throughout your life. Go check out all that great programming, and let's get started in on the finance for the day. Starting with the Dow. The Dow spent the day up actually today, and by quite a margin, especially when we look back at where the drops were and how far the drops went down over the past couple days. The Dow ending today at 33,826.16. That is up 524.29 points, or just a little bit over 1.5%. So it's winning. Those of you who have a little bit left in your retirements or your 401ks, you got a little bit of a bailout today. So we'll see if the momentum continues. It does look like the futures are looking down right now, so we'll be talking a bit more about that and what's happening there. Looking in at your Bitcoin. Oops, that's down here. There it is. Your Bitcoin also was up today. $29,597 US dollars and 50 US cents. That's up $1,200 and 80 US cents on the day today, on the trading day today. And that's after a major jump as we switched over from yesterday to today, about 24 hours ago at this point. And some tumble, a little bit coming back off of there because it was a pretty major jump, but it's still a steady climb throughout the day with one more big spike coming up as we approached closer to where we are sitting at right now. And still a little bit of tumble after that, but nothing really to write home about. So we're approaching a $30,000 Bitcoin again. So again, if you bought on the dip especially, congratulations. You are starting to do quite well on the Bitcoin. I know our old friend Ron would always tell us if you can't hold it or mold it, you should have already sold it, but there are some people that enjoy that. Plus, it gives a really, really good indicator on the short term of our economy, because we've got Go for Papa Palpatine over on Rumble, by the way, because when you have your Coinbase and your PayPal account and you need cash right now and you've got some Bitcoin, you can have cash in your account in 20 minutes. So something to keep in mind and something to see where people go back and sell off in a hurry. Let's look in at the gas prices around the Madison area, and it does look like we are going on a downward trend, at least on the east side of Madison. I think we actually went down. I didn't even look at the prices today where I live, but I know that I put $30 in before Contemporary yesterday because I was in a hurry and I was running way behind, and I got well more miles to empty than I usually do off $30 rather. 33-gallon tank. It takes a long time to fill. We've still got that stubborn 338 quick trip on the east side of Madison, on the east side of the Isthmus, but it looks like the two on the far east side have dropped to 330, indicating maybe this is a trend for the rest of the Madison area. We do still have also a stubborn 340 over here, so a little bit of a mixed bag, but it looks right now like it's either steady or trending down, so we'll see what happens with this. Let's grab our finance report for the day. We've got DM Ryan over on the YouTube side, by the way, too. Welcome to that. And I don't even have my news scene up. We've been looking at charts all day, and I've been highlighting with my charts, and I didn't even change my scene. Holy crap. I swear I'm a professional here, you guys. All right, from CNBC, the Dow and the S&P post best day since January. NASDAQ climbs 2% as big tech rallies. Live updates from Alex Herring and Hakyung Kim. Stocks finished Thursday higher as strong results from Meta boosted tech-related names. The Dow advanced 524.29 points, or 1.57%, to close at 33,826.16. The Nasdaq jumped 2.43 to finish at 12,14224. while the S&P climbed 1.96 to end at 4135.35. It was the best day since January for the Dow and the S&P, since March for NASDAQ. Meta shares leapt 13.9% after the company reported quarterly revenue that topped expectations and issued an upbeat forecast. Several analysts liked their price targets. Following the release, shares of other tech-related names such as Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, and Apple also popped. The market was waiting with bated breath for big tech, said Quincy Crosby, chief global strategist at LPL Financial. Across the board, it hasn't disappointed, and the market needed that. Now, we've got the tech going up here, but of course, the big part of this is the fact that Mark Zuckerberg sold your data. Give me more data to sell. I need data to live and survive on. Man cannot survive on sweet baby rays alone. Stocks rose despite weaker than expected GDP data, which suggests to some investors that the Federal Reserve could soon wrap up its tightening campaign. The Fed is slated to announce its latest policy decision next week. Quarter point, by the way. The U.S. economy grew 1.1% in the first quarter, while economists polled by Dow Jones forecasted expansion of 2%. The report also showed stronger than expected inflation, with prices increasing 4%, compared with a consensus estimate of 3.7%. Imagine that. Honeywell, an industrial bellwether, added more than 4% on the back of the quarterly report. That was better than Wall Street expected. Teladoc and Comcast were among other companies trading higher after releasing earnings reports. Jesus, are you going to fly any lower? Good God. Maybe it's a terrorist flying something into a building. However, Caterpillar, another barometer of global economy, fell around 0.9 as investors feared a buildup in inventory suggests demand is slowing. So, that is where we are at on finance. We've got the layoffs report, and then we've got to go into our main news of the day. Our layoffs today come from Dropbox. Dropbox lays off 500 employees, 16% of staff, CEO says, due to slowing growth and the era of AI, from Ingrid London. Cloud storage giant Dropbox today joined the fray of tech companies announcing layoffs. The company today announced it would be laying off 16% of its staff, equivalent to about 500 employees, due to slowing growth, and in the words of CEO Drew Houston, because the AI era of computing has finally arrived. These appear to be the first layoffs the company's made since January 2021, when it laid off 315 employees in the throes of the pinkpox pandemic, which didn't actually start until March. But, no, that was the year before. Never mind. More on here. The latest cull was announced to staff in a memo from CEO and co-founder Drew Houston, as well as in an SEC filing. The SEC filing noted the company will incur charges of approximately $37 million to $42 million in connection with layoffs, which will be recorded in Quarter 2. Quarter 1 results, which will be reported next Thursday, will be in line or even above expectations, it added. Well, yeah, it's because you have 500 people. You don't have to pay probably 50 to 70, maybe even 100 grand a pop. Of course, your quarterly revenue is going to be higher. Learn to, well, I guess I can't even come back out and say that anymore. All right, there's our finance for the day. Let's throw some F's in the chat because beloved television icon and former Cincinnati mayor Jerry Springer has passed away at 79 years old. From Lisa Respars, France, and Marianne Garvey. Jerry Springer, the former Cincinnati mayor and longtime TV host whose tabloid talk show was known for outrageous arguments, thrown chairs, and physical confrontations between sparring couples and homewreckers, has died. A family spokesperson said on Thursday Springer was 79. I was going to say, he was kind of an old dude when I was watching him in the 90s. Jerry's ability to connect with people was at the heart of his success in everything that he tried, whether that was in politics, broadcasting, or just joking with people on the street who wanted a photo or word. Jenny Galvin, a lifelong friend and spokesman for the family, said in a statement. Springer once told CNN he did not mind being referred to as the grandfather of trash TV. Yeah, that's probably accurate. Saying in 2010 as The Jerry Springer Show celebrated its 20th anniversary on air. It's probably accurate. I don't know what the award for that is, but I think it's true that we probably one of the first shows to present some of the outrageousness we have. The show ended in 2018 after more than 4,000 episodes and countless think pieces about Springer's role in the decline of culture, if not civilization. Yeah, that's probably fair, actually. Springer had said that he had no delusions about his show with topics such as trick-or-cheaters confront the dominatrix. Missed that one somehow. And lesbians come clean. Yeah. How do you confront a dominatrix? That's like the antithesis of that relationship. I think the show is silly, crazy, and has no redeeming social value other than an hour of escapism, he said in 2010. There is never anything on our show that hasn't been on the front pages of newspapers in America. The only difference is that people on my show aren't famous. And some of them got there. It's a show about craziness, he added. I know that going in every day. I actually know somebody who went on there, but like the situation that they were talking about when they went on, it was made up. And there were people that did that too on that show. Like, there were real people that were on there, but a lot of it was play acting, especially after you marked over 2,000. People knew what would get likes. This was before likes and clicks, but like people knew what would get eyes onto it. And they would exaggerate or exacerbate or completely make up an entire situation just to come up and get on the show and get on there. The couple that I know that went on there, number one, they weren't actually a couple. And number two, what they did on the show absolutely reflected zero of their personal life. I knew them personally, so I knew what their life was like. It was funny. And it was entertaining to see people that I knew go on Jerry Springer, but it was completely made up. And I know that they weren't the only ones who did that. But I mean, you got a lot off of it. I mean, you did have the Jerry Springer update, and I mean, it was a meme before there were memes. They were talking about it in Austin Powers movies. They were talking about it in other parody movies. And not only did Jerry come off and take off the way that he did, his security guard Steve got his own show off of it too. I never watched Cheaters. I'm aware of it. I've seen the advertisements for it, and I think after watching something, I don't know if it came on after the Voyager reruns when I was in college is where I saw it all the time, but I never actually sat down and watched it. The show's notoriety peaked in 2000 when a German man was accused of killing his ex-wife after they appeared together on The Springer Show with the man's new wife. Ralph Ponitz was convicted of second-degree murder for beating Nancy Ponitz to death. That year, Springer appeared on Larry King Live in his first major interview since the murder. At the time, Springer said the murder had nothing to do with the show. Well, one, it's horrible that obviously the person was murdered, he told King. It had nothing to do with the show, but it's still horrible. So, F, and as 80s kid who was watching Springer from across the pond, let me remind you, as he pointed out, F and double F for Jerry Springer. That was an icon, and that it did shape our culture, for better or for worse. And it also gave it gave me my personal favorite. Like, the reason people watch on Twitter and laugh at how stupid some of the people are is because I used to people watch on Springer and laugh how stupid those people were. So, Springer, you will be missed. Again, for better or for worse. Alright, let's do our political update for the day. The Calvin Coolidge Project tweeting out, Just in, GOP Governor Jim Justice has officially announced he is running for the 2024 West Virginia Senate race against Joe Manchin. Now, when I posted this in my Discord, because I caught it while I was at work, when I posted this in my Discord, my friend Midget B put the glowing Apu, the one that has the not the FBI badge on him, up under it. So I don't know if Jim Justice has a federal agent background to him. I will admit that I don't know very much about Jim Justice. I know that Wisconsin Neanderthal said if we don't flip this seat, the GOP is dead. To which I pointed out that the GOP has been dead since '88 when they elected the first Bush. So there's that. Let's read a little bit about Jim Justice here. From CNBC, West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice kicks off campaign for Joe Manchin's pivotal Senate seat. From Kevin Bräuninger. The West Virginia Republican Governor Jim Justice announced his 2024 campaign for the U.S. Senate seat, currently held by incumbent Democrat Senator Joe Manchin on Thursday. The long-anticipated move by Justice, who switched parties in 2017 and has since become one of the red state's most popular politicians, could further imperil Democrats' efforts to keep their slim majority in the Senate. I hate, like crazy, it's taken this long to make the decision, Justice said at a campaign kickoff event Thursday at the Greenbrier, his luxury hotel in White Silver Springs, West Virginia. The governor touted his conservative record on issues including abortion laws, the toughest of the toughest in school choice. Justice sat on a wooden stool as he addressed the crowd of his supporters while Baby Dog, the governor's 3.5-year-old English bulldog, which he's got my vote on that. I love English bulldogs. In de facto campaign surrogate, was seated next to him in a plush red armchair. As we can see, where's my cursor? From that. I am a fan of English bulldogs, by the way. And I go buy a piece of land, that's probably going to be the first addition to my home is an English bulldog. A little chunky one, hopefully. Manchin, one of the chamber's most conservative Democrats, has said he won't decide whether to run for re-election until closer to the end of the year. Do keep in mind he is also in his mid-70s, which I guess is average for the Senate, so I don't even know why I brought that up. Regardless of Justice's plans, his seat is considered one of the most winnable for Republicans in next year's election. I'm laser focused on doing the job West Virginians elected me to do, lowering healthcare costs, protecting Social Security and Medicare, shoring up American energy security, and getting our fiscal house in order, Manchin said in a statement Thursday after news of Justice's Senate bid. But make no mistake, I will win any race I enter, Manchin said. Probably not. While Manchin has taken the adversarial tack against much of his own party in recent months, it could be their best hope in holding on to their majority in 2024 when they defend 23 of the cycle's 34 Senate seats up for grabs. If Manchin decides not to run for a third term, Democrats are widely expected to lose a seat to whichever Republican nominee emerges from West Virginia's Senate primary. Rep. Alex Mooney, who was backed by former President Trump in his most recent House election, has already jumped into the Senate race. Mooney's campaign manager, John Finley, says Jim Justice is just another Joe Manchin, which, again, is actually kind of a fair assessment. I don't think he is, because Manchin, remember, stayed a Democrat, whereas Jim Justice had to switch parties because he couldn't stand to be among them anymore. So there is that note to it, but again, coming out of the left and moving further to the right on both the political spectrum but also on the party ballot line, that's something that both of them did. So this will be one to watch as we come into the election season. Let's talk DeSantis. And the title of today's show, Florida Politics. Reporting today, Governor DeSantis signs law cracking down on hate speech. Says Florida led the way in fighting anti-Semitism. Okay. DeSantis signed the law, effective immediately during an overseas stop in Jerusalem. This is from Jesse Schechner. On the same day, he delivered a keynote speech at the Museum of Tolerance in Israel. Governor Ron DeSantis signed a law designed to curb a disturbing rise in anti-Semitism across Florida. Oh, really? Where? The measure, HB 269, titled Public Nuisances, makes it a felony to harass people for their religion or ethnicity. It also penalizes leaving flyers with hateful images, messages, or any other credible threat on a person's private property. Despite arguments from the public that the bill, however well-intentioned, hampers people's First Amendment rights, it ultimately cleared both chambers of the legislature this month with unanimous support. That's because the GOP never changes. They can put up a firebrand or a wild card into one of the big seats, like the White House, but ultimately deep down in the party politics, and this is why I've never been a Republican, it never changes. They'll come back up and do something, and even do something that the left likes. Like, oh, we've got to stop anti-Semitism because we're holy and we're wonderful. And then we get something where if you're putting out leaflets and somebody considers it harassment, you could be facing down a felony. With no real definitions either, by the way. I've read the bill, and we'll look at some of it. It's only 7 pages, and I'll put it in the Discord, too. DeSantis signed the bill, effective immediately during an overseas stop in Jerusalem, while flanked by its 2 Republican sponsors, Delray Beach Rep. Mike Caruso and Palm Bay Rep. Randy Fine. Republican Miami Senator Alex Kelet-Tayud carried a similar version of the bill in the Senate. I will not stand here and do nothing. I will not be complacent, and I will not sit around with that attitude. We're just going to wait for these haters to start breaking the glass windows and storefronts of Jewish store owners again, like they did in the past before we wake up, Caruso said when announcing the legislation in January. I hope I speak for all the legislators, my fellow legislators, that enough is enough. The new law comes amid an all-time high in hate acts against Florida Jews, according to the ADL, which tracked 269 anti-Semitic attacks in the Sunshine State in 2022. A 42% increase from the year prior and more than double the number in 2020. It would help if I could talk. That included projections of anti-Semitic messages and swastikas on buildings in downtown West Palm Beach and Jacksonville, and anti-Semitic flyers left outside of homes in Boca Raton. Similar flyers popped up in Fort Myers, Fort Pierce, Jacksonville, Miami, Naples, Orlando, Punta Gorda, Sarasota, and Vero Beach in July, prompting calls for a federal probe into the matter. Here's your federal probe. The people who support David Hogg started throwing these things around, printing them and throwing them around. And I'm saying, see, Republicans! Earlier still, bigots hung banners over overpasses urging drivers to end Jewish supremacy. Again, I've never heard an anti-Semite, and I know a bunch of them, say the words Jewish supremacy. That's one that I've never heard them use. And yet these ones mysteriously put that right back out here. Like, white supremacists don't use the word supremacy. Blasted light projections on Jacksonville saying Kanye West was right about the Jews, and hoisted a Nazi flag outside of Disney World. Those acts prompted officials in Palm Beach County and Jacksonville to propose legislation criminalizing the projection of unauthorized light displays on buildings, with the latter passing an emergency measure to do just that. The signing of HB 269 did little to quash criticism of the Democratic coalition of Jewish American citizens lodged at DeSantis, because of course it did, for saying during his Museum of Tolerance speech that Florida has led the way in combating the scourge of anti-Semitism. That's an outrageous assertion, the Jewish Democratic Council of America said, considering the government's slow response to the neo-Nazi rally in Orlando. The tepid attention he and his staff, the Fed rally by the way, he and his staff paid to more than a year's worth of hateful protests, and his use of anti-Semitic dog whistles claiming George Soros controls elected officials. And see, again, this is the kind of speech that is going to get called up and said, hey, this is a felony. And I'm sure that the JDCA is already sitting out here trying to craft the criminal complaints that they can bring forward to start calling things that their political enemies, the things that they say, to call them a felony. Which is why we don't restrict free speech in this country. Because it always comes down to a matter of who decides. And I'm sorry, I don't want people like the JDCA deciding what I have said is hate speech or not. Caribbean National Weekly comes out and says the Brandeis Center commends Florida's governor and legislators for signing HB 269 into law. By CNW contributor. Thank you, contributor. Kenneth L. Marcus, founder and chairman of the Louis D. Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law and the former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Education for Civil Rights for 2 presidents, commended Florida governor and legislators for signing HB 269 into law. We are delighted Florida's governor today took strong action to address the alarming spike in anti-Jewish hate crimes by signing Florida's HB 269. Rep. Caruso and Fine should be congratulated for their leadership, and the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County applauded for its work, Marcus said. We are now seeing a resurgence of right-wing hate crimes in the streets, perpetrated by feds, of course, just as we're seeing left-wing anti-Semitism growing around the campuses. All forms of anti-Semitism must be fought. I am going to leave that one alone through all available legal means, and we are pleased this legislation will provide us with the important additional tools to do so in Florida, as we continue to fight this scourge throughout the country, he added. The Brandeis Center provided constitutional and legal analysis to Florida's Jewish community in support of the bill. Jews make up just 2% of the populace, but according to the latest FBI statistics, Jews have been targeted more than all other religious groups combined. I lived through the early 2000s, and I doubt that. I really do. I believe that would be Islam, historically. Anti-Semitic incidents have been rising in Florida for several years, according to the ADL's 2022 report, Hate in the Sunshine State. There's an objective point to this. As reported by JTA's Andrew Lapin, anti-Semitic groups have rallied outside Walt Disney World, and a Shabbat house in Orlando displayed messages of Jew hatred on a Jacksonville stadium during a highly watched college football game, and visited Florida's universities, trying to provoke students with messaging including "Ye is right," referring to Kanye West, who went on an anti-Semitic tirade this fall. Alright. We're going to talk about this for just a moment, and we're actually going to read the bill. We've got the statistics on it, and the full text right here, 7 pages. So I'm going to point out some highlights. Before we do that, I'm going to put this into the Discord. I almost want to tag this and say, Midget, come get your people. Which, in fact, I'm going to do right now. And we're going to look through some of this. Now, before I do, I do want to talk about one thing with this, with me. Now, most people who know me, most people who don't know me, think that I'm a raging anti-Semite, partially because of the company that I keep, and partially because I don't align with what it is that they have to say about Marxism. A lot of people think that I am an absolute raging anti-Semite. But as you will see when we do things that I like at the end of the show, I'm actually what you might call a pro-Semite. I am not an anti-Semitic person. In fact, a lot of people know this about me, is typically if I wind up having some sort of crush on a girl that isn't otherwise normally my type, a lot of times I find out later that she is Jewish of some sort. I am a very, very pro-Semitic person, but I still understand the fact that when groups of people have found a way to turn what you say and decide what you say as hate speech and into a felony, it will be used against you. This is what the Founding Fathers warned about, by the way. This is absolutely what the Founding Fathers warned about when they wrote the First Amendment. Shall not be abridged. For a reason. Because there's an arbitrary decision on who decides it, and then who gets to go back and enforce that. And that is a position that we do not need to be in this country. I'm telling you. Some of the stats on this here. We've got the co-sponsors and the brief text. Public nuisances prohibits a person from distributing onto private property any materials for purposes of intimidating or threatening owner, resident, or invitee. Prohibits a person from willfully and maliciously harassing, threatening, or intimidating another person based on a person's wearing or displaying of any indicia relating to any religious or ethnic heritage. Requires violations to be reported as hate crimes. And that's the point where I have a major problem with this. Prohibits display or projection of images onto buildings, structure, or property without the permission. Prohibits person from willfully enters campus of state university or Florida college system, institution for purpose of threatening or intimidating another person from remaining on such campus after being warned to depart. And this is actually an old update on this bill here, because the last event recorded here was that it was signed by officers and presented to the governor on Wednesday, so yesterday, which he did sign that today. And we have the full text over here as pointed out. This is an act relating to the public nuisances, amending sections 403.413, prohibiting persons from distributing onto private property material for the purpose of intimidating or threatening the owner, resident, or invitee of such property, providing criminal penalties, prohibiting a person from distributing onto private property any material which contains credible threat to the owner, resident, or invitee of such property, providing criminal penalties, providing a definition, even though in 7 pages there's absolutely zero definition in this. Creating section 784.0493, providing definitions, prohibiting a person from willfully and maliciously harassing, threatening, or intimidating another person based on the person's wearing or displaying of any indicia related to any religious or ethnic heritage, providing a criminal penalty, requiring that violations be reported as hate crimes. Again, there's that word. You see, the person, the caricature that our friends on the right, our anti-Trump friends on the right, have provided us to Ron DeSantis, is that he would never sign a bill with those words on it, and yet, here we are. Let's see, providing section 810.098, prohibiting a person who willfully enters the campus of a state university or Florida college system institutions for the purpose of threatening or intimidating another person from remaining on such campus after being warned to depart. Providing criminal penalties, providing construction, providing definitions, amending section 871.01, prohibiting interference with certain assemblies, providing criminal penalty, providing construction, providing an effective date. So this it starts off going on to the Florida litter law, talking about and littering is typically a $500 fine to begin with. But then if it has any sort of racial tone whatsoever, what you've littered, it becomes a felony. The person violates subparagraph 1 by intentionally dumping litter on a private property for the purpose of intimidating the owner, resident or invitee of such property and such litter contains a credible threat with absolutely no definition of credible threat, the person commits a felony of the 3rd degree. The leaflet law. Punishable as provided in Section 775.082, Section 775.083, or Section 775.084. For purposes of this paragraph, the term credible threat has the same meaning as in Section 784.048. Again, we go down with a credible threat, harassment, or intimidation based on religious or ethnic heritage. A lot of this, by the way, and I'm not going to read through all 7 pages of it, does refer to pre-crime for the most part. A person may not knowingly and intentionally display or project using any medium an image onto a building, structure, or other property without the written consent of the owner of the building, structure, or property. For purposes of this subsection, the term image means visual representation or likeness of a person or object, including text, graphics, logos, or other artwork, or any combination thereof. I'm less opposed to this section of it, because basically you're putting your views onto the views of onto a piece of private property that may or may not be the views of the owner of that property. That would be the same as graffiti. But I don't think this should be felony level stuff. This should be especially this should mostly be civil suit kind of stuff. Hey, you projected this hateful image onto my building. You cost me X amount of damages. Let's go take it in front of a judge. Not using the state of Florida to go back and punish these people. So the bill is in the Discord. Let me actually put it into the chats as well. You guys can go check it out for yourselves. And let's move on. Some more judicial work here from the Associated Press. Chief Justice Roberts declined to testify at Senate Supreme Court ethics hearing. From Mary Claire Jelonik, and Mark Sherman. Chief Justice Roberts has declined a request from the Senate Judiciary to testify at a hearing next week on ethical standards at the court, instead providing a panel with a statement of ethics reaffirmed by the court's 9 justices. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin invited Roberts' testimony last week, saying that there had been a steady stream of revelations regarding the Supreme Court justices falling short of ethical standards expected for other federal judges. The invitation came after the news reports that detailed a close relationship between Clarence Thomas and a conservative donor from Texas, which was not required to be revealed at the time, and you can't go back and retroactively punish somebody for a crime after you pass the law. I do think he should have disclosed this, by the way. I'm in the camp that he should have, but you can't do a criminal penalty because it wasn't against the law at the time. The donor, Harlan Crow, had purchased 3 properties belonging to Thomas and his family in a transaction worth more than $100,000 that Thomas never reported, according to the nonprofit investigative journalism organization ProPublica. Right, and again, it wasn't illegal at the time that they did it. And with the new ethics rules that have been put into place, if it happens now, from here going forward, and he doesn't disclose it, then we go talk about the investigation. But again, and again, I'm in the camp that he should have reported it, but we can't use the government's laws for it. In a letter to Durbin on Tuesday, Roberts said that he would respectfully decline the committee's request. Good. Testimony before the Judiciary Committee by the Chief Justice is exceedingly rare, as one might expect in light of separation of powers concerns and the importance of preserving judicial independence. Accompanying the letter to Durbin was a statement of ethics principles and practices signed by all 9 justices, describing the ethical rules they follow about travel, gifts, and outside income. While the rules are not new, the statement said the undersigned justices today reaffirm and restate foundational ethics principles and practices to which they subscribe in carrying out their responsibilities as members of the Supreme Court of the United States. So, again, good. He's in the right here. Alright, let's talk about Jack Teixeira. This is funny, by the way. Especially if you're an Airsoft fan, this is funny. Catherine Herridge tweets out, according to DOJ newly filed memo, the Air National Guardsman accused of leaking classified materials had a cache of weapons and tactical gear surrounding his bed, reports CBS Herridge. Prosecutors allege the 21-year-old is a flight risk. Well, he's in the Air Force, so of course he's a flight risk. But let's cut out the music and let's listen to Herridge's report. This is really funny, by the way.
The alarming new allegations about an Air National Guardsman accused of leaking classified materials. Prosecutors say that Jack Teixeira had a long history of making racist and also anti-Semitic comments and also had access to a large collection of weapons. He is due in a Massachusetts courtroom later today, and our senior
As they're zooming in, by the way, it's really hard to see. I'm actually going to blow it up here. But you can see, okay, once you blow it up, it's actually really easy to see. You've got the orange tip there, the orange tip there, and the orange tip there. These are airsoft weapons. You morons. Now, mind you, once you get hit with an airsoft pellet, there is a pretty distinctive sting that comes with that, but and if you hit the just right place, you might actually kill somebody. But it's increasingly unlikely.
investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge has more on this from Washington. She's been following it. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. The 21-year-old allegedly shared classified military documents and CIA updates on a social media platform used by video gamers and others to connect online. A Wednesday court filing by the Justice Department includes new evidence that alleges a history of violent and racist remarks.
Hours before Jack Teixeira's scheduled court appearance, federal prosecutors filed a memo arguing for his confinement. According to the 18-page memo, federal investigators found a gun locker at his mom's house outside Boston, with a cache of weapons and tactical gear surrounding his bed. Prosecutors say 5 years ago, Teixeira was suspended from high school for talking about weapons, mentioning Molotov cocktails and guns at the school, and making racial threats. That behavior was flagged to local police when Teixeira applied to obtain a firearm. And the filing also alleges he searched online about mass killings and posted.
Which, by the way, again, a reminder, he was living in Massachusetts, which I have done. And one of the things that I can tell you is that applying to and getting a weapon in Massachusetts is an act of God.
Disturbing comments, saying he wanted ISIS to, quote, kill a ton of people. The Department of Justice also argues there was an attempt to interfere with the investigation. It claims Teixeira tried to cover up the leak by destroying evidence like a laptop and game console and post.
We actually have court precedent that that's not a crime anymore.
In a chat group to delete all my messages. Teixeira's IT job in the National Guard allowed access to highly classified material. The Air Force temporarily suspended 2 commanders of his unit and stripped them of their access to classified systems. This week, National Security spokesman John Kirby told CBS Mornings that the scope of the damage is still unknown.
The truth is, Tony, that we don't. And that's obviously deeply concerning to all of us. We want to get as great a grasp on the scope of the universe of documents that are out there so we can do a proper national security assessment of exactly what damage might be done.
Prosecutors say Teixeira should be held pending trial because he is a flight risk. He faces 25 years in prison connected to charges involving the Espionage Act, and there could be more charges to come. We've reached out to his lawyer for comment but have received no response.
The alarming.
That's funny, because if I was in the same position and you reached out to my lawyer for comment, she would fax you back a picture of her middle finger. I've seen her do this, by the way. And she's 60. And a little bit more on this story here from the USA Today. Pentagon leak suspect Jack Teixeira had an arsenal of weapons, prosecutors said. And they were all airsoft. I can't believe anybody's buying this crap. I really can't. From Bart Jansen and Tom Vandenbroek. Prosecutors argued that Teixeira, the guardsman accused of releasing Pentagon secrets on social media, had an arsenal of weapons and could flee the country if released from jail during his detention hearing on Thursday. Yeah, they always say that. Teixeira of North Dighton is charged with unauthorized retention of national defense information and unauthorized removal of classified documents. David Hennessy didn't rule out immediately whether to release Teixeira with conditions, as his lawyers requested, or keep him jailed until trial. Dude, you can see him. Grant wants me to show my boobs. This shirt is kind of tight-fitting. You can see him. Oh, I'm a little bit slouched over now, so you can't. Like on the because typically my monitor over here is off to the side, and I don't see a lot of it. But like I see the Instagram because it's right in front of me, and yeah, they're pointing. They're pretty clear. Let's see. David Hennessy didn't rule out immediately whether to release Teixeira with conditions, as his lawyers requested, or keep him jailed until trial. So, there you go. And our airsoft. Gotta love it. Mike Pence made news today. For once. Pence testifies before federal grand jury investigating Trump's role in January 6th. Because we're still going to do this, apparently. From Ryan J. Riley, Laura Jarrett, Daniel Barnes, and Gary Grumbach. Former Vice President Mike Pence appeared Thursday before the federal grand jury convened as part of the special counsel investigation into former President Trump's efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss and remain in power, according to a source familiar with the matter. Look, I can tell you what they're doing with this almost immediately. They want twice, maybe 3 times indicted to be the headline every time he goes and runs. They want him to be the nominee. But they want him to go into the debate to be able to say, thrice indicted, former president. In fact, I'm pretty sure, not Chris Matthews. What was the other one? The Chris that did the first Fox News debate. I can't think of it. I can hear his annoying voice, but I can't think of what his name was. What the fuck was his name? I can't remember. I can see his face. Yes, please, Mr. President, please stop spamming in hashtag general. That guy. What was his name? No, Rip Torn did not do a political debate. The dark-haired guy with a bowl cut, much longer than he needs to have a bowl cut on and glasses. God, I can see his face. And here, first we have the current president of the United States, the Honorable Joe Biden. And then up here we also have the thrice indicted, twice impeached, disgrace of a former president, Donald Trump. That's how they're going to introduce him, too. The testimony is a significant development into the special counsel's probe, as Pence could provide critical insights into Trump's thinking. Really? in the days leading up to the Selfie Fest on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. The former vice president published a memoir and a Wall Street Journal opinion article detailing several of his interactions with Trump, but some details were left vague. Special counsel Smith's team is particularly interested in Trump's efforts to try to block the certification of the election, NBC News previously reported. This is going to drive me nuts. Wallace, that was it. Chris Wallace. I knew it was a Chris. I knew it wasn't Chris Matthews because he was on MSNBC and he got canned. Pence's appearance came amid an increased security presence at the federal courthouse in Washington on Thursday. NBC News spotted multiple black SUVs with tinted windows entering the parking garage. In the morning, 2 black SUVs entered the courthouse garage at around 0900, an entrance that will allow witnesses to head up to the grand jury rooms on the 3rd floor without being seen in the public areas of the courthouse. The SUVs left the courthouse at around 4:30 p.m. One reporter asked Chief Judge James Boasberg, who oversees the grand jury proceedings, what happened. He demurred. A spokesman for Jack Smith declined to comment. So he went in and he testified apparently for 5.5 hours. They got him this time! Oh, they got him this time! They got him this time. Just this time it's going to happen. Just this one time, they really got him. Hey, here's the guy who's in charge of our fiscal policy right now. From ABC News. Feds, Powell was tricked by fake call from Russia pranksters. I wonder if this is the same one that did the Greta Thunberg call to Bernie Sanders. I still remember, and I had my former business partner, Jake from Freedom Scoop, on with me that night. And we watched that video. And, the dancing Russian bears. The animation that they put with it. I wonder if it's these same guys. This is from Christopher Rugaber. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell was tricked into an extended phone call in January. Oh, is this old news already with Russian pranksters posing as Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky? During which Powell appeared to discuss the economic impact of interest rate hikes. Oh, Major Victory got it too. I didn't see that. I'm sorry, Major Victory. I didn't catch that until just now. Attempt 6 million at taking Trump down. Yep, they got him this time. And Grant over on the Rumble side asked, is Chris Wallace still around or did they leave him on CNN+? I guess I haven't heard from him in quite a while, but yeah, maybe, because he was supposed to be the flagship guy for CNN+, and I don't have cable, so I don't watch CNN, so I don't know if he's in or on. That would be a good question to ask. I'll look into that after we're off air. Videos of the phone call have been posted on social media. In one clip, Powell says a recession is almost as likely as a very slow growth this year. Powell has said before that the Fed's rapid series of rate hikes in the past year would slow the economy and even potentially cause a recession. A spokesperson for the Federal Reserve said the video appears to have been edited, and I cannot confirm it is accurate. Yeah, they probably cut it for time. Chair Powell participated in a conversation in January with someone who misrepresented himself as the Ukrainian president. The spokesperson said it was a friendly conversation that took place in the context of our standing in support of the Ukrainian people in this challenging time. Jerome Powell Russian prank call. The Post, the USA Today, all the video is just people that are talking about it. Is this it?
Inflation to come by paying less way. And
Alright, I got a minute clip of it. I'm gonna see if I can find the full video tomorrow, or for tomorrow. But we've got a clip of it right here.
But what we're going to find is that growth in 2022 was positive but modest. It was subdued, so 1% around that level. In terms of this year, most forecasts call for the U.S. economy to continue to grow, but at a pretty subdued level. So growth of less than 1%, let's say. But we would tell you that a recession is almost as likely as very slow growth. So that's a fact, and I think that is partly because of us having raised rates quite a bit. But this is what it takes to get inflation down. To get inflation off of the high, we've had inflation at its highest level in 40 years. To get inflation to come down, what we need is a period of slower growth so that the economy can cool off, so the labor market can cool off, so that wages can cool off, and so that's how inflation comes down. That's the only way we know to bring inflation down. And it can be painful, but we don't know of any painless way for inflation to come down.
Yeah, and they cut that out and they took the print colors out on this one here. I'm gonna see if I can find that. I know there's an extension for every browser that you can get to get all the priority creators out of the way so you can actually see the video. And like I'm scrolling down here and all that I see right now is just news, priority, check mark. I will find this video and we will watch it together. Speaking of people saying stupid things on camera, Kamala Harris getting into it. From RNC Research, Kamala Harris says the Netflix series Squid Game is an example of the cultural ties and the intertwined history between the U.S. and South Korea. Let's listen.
I also think of the Emmy Award-winning TV shows like Squid Games, which I will confess Doug and I binge-watched at home over a series of weeks.
No, you didn't.
And I think of the actress Yoon Ya-jung, who I met in Seoul last year when I convened groundbreaking South Korean women. She is the first Korean to win an Academy Award for acting. These are examples of the cultural ties and the intertwined history between our nations. I also think of the Emmy Award-winning TV show.
Dude, if you actually watched it, then you would know that that's not true. It's just the fact that some capitalists want to watch people being greedy on TV is not a cultural tie between the U.S. and South Korea. You moron. 81 million votes. The Donald got into it as well. 17-second clip from RSBN put out by Breaking 911.
Now, do you think, does anybody really believe what's going on in this country? I will sign a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. Now, do you think, does anybody really believe what's going on in this country?
As much as I think that this is a good thing, again, I default to my federalist tendencies. And number one, we can go ahead and let California prove how evil that they are, because they will let this crap go through, and they will sign a bill on the grounds of the 10th Amendment. Or I'm sorry, not a bill, a lawsuit on the grounds of the 10th Amendment to allow them to go back and regulate this themselves. They don't want abortion to be done in itself, but if a law like this goes on to a federal level, it's going to get struck down. As bad as it is, for it to get struck down, it will get struck down. But again, we need to be looking into our state houses and encouraging them and forcing their feet to the fire to do this. And the politicians that won't, put them on blast for it. This is an interesting one, and I haven't pre-read this one, so I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. But I saw the headline, I'm like, I gotta talk about this, because I gotta see what this is. From the Daily Wire, Biden nominees torpedo own confirmation to kill report on whether lax crime policies hurt minorities. From Luke Rosiak. A federal civil rights commission meeting devolved into chaos last week as Democrats went to great lengths to block a study on whether crime disproportionately impacts minorities and, by implication, whether soft on crime policies create a civil rights issue by subjecting poor blacks to high crime rates. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights consists of 8 commissioners, 4 liberals and 4 conservatives, but Republicans say Democrats double-crossed them by breaking a deal they had made to vote for the report. Frankly, the 4 of us feel like we're chumps, that we agreed to the anti-Asian briefing on the condition that we also have a crime victims report, Conservative Commissioner Gail Harriet said on Friday. We were double-crossed, plain and simple, Republican Commissioner Christian Adams added. The question of who suffers from crime is an issue that has broad agreement, is an important issue in the U.S., and is not a difficult lift. I don't even think it's controversial. Democrats were so adamant in blocking the study on crime victims, which applies to standard Democrat logic about any policy that results in disproportionalities being evidence of the policy's racism, that the 2 Democrats newly nominated to the commission by Joe Biden refuses to rectify the double-crossing by their predecessors, even though they knew it meant their confirmation as chair and vice chair would be blocked. So that's how they did it. Interesting. We're not going to do that one. That's an 8-minute video. I've used a lot of video of this stream. Oops, I don't want that. Luke Wee is here. Welcome, Luke Wee. And it's kind of telling too, like these people who are desperate for power will still look at the power and say, nope, don't want it. Hey, is the Mogwai here? Because we've got some Tucker stuff. I know he loves Tucker. So Tucker put this video out last night, and I found it like right after we were off stream and put it in the Discord right away and I didn't pre-watch it. I wanted to hear this with the rest of you. But this video, just this here alone, has 65.2 million views. And when the Daily Wire released the article, it said 18 million and counting with a video statement. This is probably going to go to 100 million viral at some point here. So let's have a listen to what it is that Tucker Carlson has to say.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
Again, that was my first time listening to that. Is Tucker going scorched earth? Is he ready to come back down and take down the Republican Party too? I liked where he went off and said that we are coming to a point where it just seems to be one party rule, and we've decided together. Well, they've decided, not us. They decided together what narratives are going to benefit them and the both of them at the same time. Wow. I don't know what to say to this. I really don't. Other than the fact that I don't know who he's going to sign his exclusive agreement with, whether it be Spotify or Rumble, but I'm here for it. I'm ready. Got a brief one from the Daily Wire on this topic. Tucker draws 18 million and counting with a video statement. Yeah, according to 80s Kid, we're up to 67 million. I bet you this hits 100 million by the end of the night. If not, I'll just keep playing it back to back until it does. From Virginia Kruta. And I don't even like Tucker, and I'll do that. Former Fox News host Tucker Carlson drew an audience of more than 18 million and still counting with his first video statement following a surprise departure from the network. Carlson dropped the video, which ran just over 2 minutes in length, via Twitter on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. His regular time slot, in fact. At almost exactly the time his fans would normally... Oh, there it is. They would normally have tuned in to watch Tucker Carlson tonight. The popular host, who routinely drew an average audience of over 3 million in his primetime slot, had reached more than 6 times that by midday Thursday, less than 24 hours after the video went live, and we just watched it. In the video, Carlson made no mention of his former employer, which, I mean, in politics, we need to have more of that. We need to have less of the, it's the other guy, and more of the, let's have the ideas in the debates. Instead, his positive message focused on observations made once he stepped away from the media bubble. Namely, that there are a lot of truly kind, generous, and hilarious people out there, which there are, absolutely. And that Americans still have an appetite for people who will tell them the truth. And while Carlson's Twitter account does not appear to be set up for subscribers, which would allow him to turn his Twitter feed into an income stream, the massive response to his video suggests that the market could be ready to follow him in that direction. I'm rethinking my stance on Tucker right now. I don't know if I'm right. Do keep in mind that this will be a long-term assessment, because he's got a lot of ground to make up for just telling the people what it is that they wanted to hear and keeping the network happy. He's got a lot of ground to make up for with me before I could ever trust him again. But I can say if Tucker wants my support, he's moving in the right direction. I will watch Tucker's career and see where he goes. And by the way, you guys know me. If I don't like a turn that he takes, and it's newsworthy enough of a turn, I will tell you about it. I absolutely will. But again, like I said, that big positive messaging of not my former employer sucks, but hey, nobody's having these discussions about race, about the drugs, about the ideas, about policy. Maybe. We'll see. Don Lemon also gets his message out here, also from the Daily Wire. Don Lemon breaks silence on first on-camera comments in CNN exit. Just want to see, everybody caught up live? Yeah, we are. I saw something pop up on the live chat counter over on the Rumble stream, and I'm like, did we make it to live? Ousted CNN anchor Don Lemon spoke out for the first time since his Monday statement, announcing the network had let him go, speaking to reporters from the red carpet at the Time 100 Summit Gala in New York on Wednesday evening. Lemon, who attended the fancy affair alongside his partner Tim Malone, and Lemon, took several questions from the press before he walked inside the event, and while he admitted again that the news has come as a shock, he appeared to shrug it off. Life goes on, that's behind me, we'll see what happens in the future. Can you lemon law Don Lemon? Thank you, Grant. Let's listen to Don Lemon.
For you.
And listen, I didn't lose my job. I lost my sister. A job is something that is not as important as a person.
So you know what's important in life.
Yes, I
Hi,
know
Don.
what's important.
What is next for you, Don?
I don't know. Sitting on the beach with this gentleman all summer and having a great summer, and I'm gonna have the summer of a 12-year-old.
Speaking of influence, what influence do you think you have on?
Why don't you ask my colleagues? I think they'll probably have.
Hey, Don. Sorry. Sorry.
The summer of a 12-year-old. Really? You said that? Really? With all the accusations that are going on both around you and around the party that you toe the line for, you said that? Really? Don, maybe go to the beach and don't come back. Oh, that's fucking gross. I don't even want to ask the question of who the pitcher and who the catcher is in that situation because he brought that up. And I was going to make that joke. Now I want to die. I heard that. I feel like Farnsworth right now. I don't want to live on this planet anymore. Alright, we are up on the clock, but I think we're going to finish. We've only got 4 more before we go to things I like and things that I hate. We might not even make it to 8 tonight. No, we will. I always say we might not make it there, and then we always make it there. In probably one of the stupidest headlines I've heard in a long time. From Politico. No, this isn't the one, is it? No, this is the smart one. I was thinking of this Fox News one over here. Never mind. This is actually a good one. White House regroups after McCarthy's debt ceiling success. From Adam Cankren, Sarah Ferris, Burgess Everett, and Olivia Beavers. President Brandon spent 4 months challenging Republicans to do one simple thing when it came to the debt ceiling: show a plan. Now the House Republicans' narrow Wednesday passage of a debt limit bill packed with spending cuts and conservative priorities is forcing Biden to shift tactics. No, now he's just going to say it's all tax cuts for the rich. Don't read it, man. It's just don't even think of looking at it here. It's just tax cuts for the rich, man. Come on. That vote is kicking off a new phase in the high-stakes standoff that will test Democrats' ability to stay united and follow through on their threats to make vulnerable GOP lawmakers pay for supporting a politically toxic plan. The White House and congressional Democrats are preparing to ramp up attacks on House Republicans over the bill, targeting swing district members for endorsing policies that would strip investments in their home districts and gut funding for particular programs. Biden's party insists it's feeling a little pressure to now deliver on House Speaker McCarthy's biggest ask, a true negotiation over the debt ceiling. Grant? Oh. I'm glad that we're getting some chat over there, so I'm not going to say too much. Grant is really, really good at jokes that make you cringe, by the way. If you're Ward hostage taking, it simply repeats, said Chris Coons of Delaware, a close Biden ally because he's from the same damn state. I don't expect the president to now say, "Oh my gosh, man, you passed a bill with 2 votes that imposes a draconian cuts across programs that most Americans would never support. Now I've come and give you whatever you want." Biden is refusing to budge from his demand that Congress pass an unconditional increase to the debt ceiling, betting that he still holds the stronger hand in the face of an economic catastrophe. And while a smattering of moderate Democrats have begun urging the president to actually negotiate with Republicans, the majority of the party seems content on showcasing the GOP bill they see as a self-inflicted wound in swing states. And again, I remind you the position that McCarthy is coming from this. He can suspend the debt ceiling entirely in a bill that comes with cuts in a negotiable manner and negotiate most of them away. And it's still never going to be enough for them, and he's still going to be coming from a position of weakness because the Democrats have a captive media. That is what I have been saying since we hit the debt ceiling in January. McCarthy is facing a major uphill battle. Biden is the asshole in this situation, but the media will never paint him that way. Spartan in with the dragon. But Democrats' public confidence that they're winning the messaging war masks private concerns over how this ultimately ends and what damage the standoff may do to a fragile, recovering economy that's critical to Biden's case for re-election. Biden allies had expected McCarthy's bid to pass a sweeping debt ceiling bill to fail, especially after watching him struggle to win the speakership and quickly abandon his plan to construct a full budget proposal. Yeah, that would have been nice, by the way. Even the Republicans understood the skepticism directed at them with a thin majority. Well, again, they do have to change their messaging. And they appear to have done so. I don't know how much longer it's going to... I don't know how much longer it's going to stay in focus. I don't. You can keep saying tax cuts for the rich, but eventually people are going to read these things. Mostly looking for things that they can post on Twitter and say, see how evil the Republicans are. But they're going to see the other stuff that's in there and say, hey, maybe we had this wrong. Pelosi also weighing in on this. Rachel Looker from USA Today reports, House passes GOP debt limit plan with deep cuts. Pelosi says Republicans are playing with fire. The House on Wednesday passed a debt ceiling plan that included a $4.5 trillion in cuts that raises the debt ceiling until May 2024. But Democrats say it won't ward off a potential government default this summer. Just before the evening vote, former Speaker Pelosi accused Republicans of playing with fire by not raising a clean debt ceiling. They raised the debt ceiling 3 times during the Trump administration, and all 3 of those were wrong, by the way. But now they're using the full faith and credit of the U.S. to try to force spending cuts Democrats will not accept. Which, by the way, I have more respect for Kevin McCarthy right now, and that's saying something, than I have for Trump. Because in a losing battle, He's actually trying to get the cuts through. The Donald didn't. He just said, okay, you give me the omnibus, I'll put the people back to work from the government shutdown, and then I'll never sign another one again. And then turn around and sign 3 more. I can't believe I have respect for Kevin McCarthy. I can't. I didn't even know that I had modded you in the first place, Spartan. That's interesting. I don't remember doing that the first time. I'll have to look later. The passage sets the stage for the debt ceiling showdown between Biden and Kevin McCarthy, who have disputed government spending levels and have not agreed on how to raise the debt ceiling. So, Pelosi weighing in. You're playing with fire. Alright, now for the stupidest headline. No, my door was locked. I'm like, that's not my door, is it? Sounded like it. Alright, from Fox News. Biden Energy Secretary doubles down on electrifying U.S. military's vehicle fleet by 2030. We can get there. From Kyle Morris. Department of Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said Wednesday that she supports efforts from the Biden admin to require the U.S. military to implement all-electric vehicle fleet by 2030, telling lawmakers she believes we can get there. Granholm's remarks came during a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing following questions from Joni Ernst of Iowa, who asked the Biden admin official whether she supports the military's adoption of an EV fleet by 2030. I do, and I think we can get there as well, Granholm said. I do think that reducing our reliance on the volatility of globally traded fossil fuels, where we know that global events like the war in Ukraine can jack up prices for people back home, does not contribute to energy security. I think energy security is achieved when we have homegrown clean energy that's abundant, like you see in Iowa, Granholm said. We think we can be a leader globally in how we have become energy independent. Okay, I have some problems with this. Now, there are probably going to be vehicles for the Army that are electric. That's very likely the case at some point. They're not going to be mainstream, and they're not going to be mostly frontline combat either. A lot of times when you're out there, you have to use the diesel engine or gas engine, depending on the vehicle that you're in, as a sort of generator for your base that you've set up hastily. So there's that avenue to it. The second is, where are you going to get a charging station in many of these places, especially in war-torn buildings, when things are blown out? You're asking people to go send vehicles out into places where you don't know the territory, you don't know the terrain, and you don't know what's going to happen, in vehicles that are not time tested yet. Tesla is having all kinds of problems. The heavy truck EVs can't get out of their own way. And even some of the small commercial things, when you plug it in the dead winter, or you'll probably have some of the same problems in the high heat and low humidity of the desert if you go back to fighting there, where the batteries are just not going to last that long charged. And again, that is if you can find a charging station to begin with. And the biggest problem that I have with this, by the way, is that military vehicles, they tell us that they're so concerned about the emissions of the military. And this is something that I know, being around heavy trucks for almost my entire career. Military vehicles don't have DPFs, don't have EGRs, and don't have DEF. Like any commercial vehicle made after 2010 is forced to have in this country. They have absolutely zero emission systems on them at all. None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. I thought I was being lied to when I saw the Air Force vehicle come into my old job. And they gave me the VIN, and I knew the year because of the VIN, and I thought, okay, well, we've got to find this, this, and this, and hey, where's your DPF? And he says, I don't have one, it's military. So they're not even cracking down and enforcing the laws that they have in place. You think they'll make ICBM EVs? I mean, that's what Granholm is telling us, or the jets, or how they replace the nuclear fleet in diesel ships. Well, technically the nuclear fleet is already electric, because it's generated on electric on board. But yeah, the diesel ships, that's another side of it. And over on the other side, 80s Kid says, I'd love to see the EV batteries carry a 55-ton tank. Drive, not carry. Yeah. And Mr. Scott reminds us, rules for thee and not for me. Nuclear is considered environmentally friendly by most people, except for they spent a good amount of time in the Netflix era convincing millennials that anytime you have a nuclear reactor, it's going to become Chernobyl. The Simpsons played a big role in that too, by the way. The Simpsons played a very big role in that. So, that is what our military is planning on doing. And the last one, we'll do a little bit of Ukraine news. Chinese ambassador sparks European outrage over suggestion former Soviet states don't exist. From Simone McCarthy. European countries are demanding answers from Beijing after its top diplomat in Paris questioned the sovereignty of former Soviet republics. Yeah, that probably wasn't the way to go. In comments that could undermine China's efforts to be seen as a potential mediator between Russia and Ukraine. I don't even know who could be the mediator at this point. The US is very clearly so biased against Russia that they can't be objective. China doesn't even think that former Soviet states exist. The remarks by China's ambassador to France, Liu Shine, who said during a television interview that former Soviet countries don't have effective status in international law, have caused diplomatic consternation, especially in the Baltic states. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia would be summoning Chinese representatives to ask for clarification. Yeah, I could see that. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielis Landsbergis confirmed on Monday. Officials, including from Ukraine, Moldova, France, and the European Union, have also all hit back with criticisms of Liu's comments. Yeah, it's kind of clear whose side you're on for that. Liu made the remarks in response to a question on whether Crimea, which was illegally annexed, which again, I don't know how you legally annex, by Russia in 2014 was part of Ukraine. Well, even these ex-Soviet countries do not have an effective status in international law because there was no international agreement to materialize their status as sovereign countries, Liu said, after first noting the question of Crimea depends on how the problem is perceived, as the region was at the beginning of Russian and then offered to Ukraine during the Soviet era. Whoops. That's gonna put a blow to bricks. Alright. That's all the news that I have for the day. We're gonna finish out, as we always do, on a Thursday, with things that I like and things that I hate. Going all the way back to the beginning. When I criticized DeSantis for signing a bill that goes so far against free speech in the name of ending anti-Semitism in the state. I reminded you that when we get down to things that I like, you're going to see how actually pro-Semitic I am. I am not anti-Semitic at all. I'm very pro-Semitic. Because the program that I've been watching on Amazon is I mean, I think everybody who stars in that program is Jewish, and I think it's hilarious. Now, before I get the criticisms, which I'm about to, and I know I'm about to, by the way, that this is a girl boss, girl power show. I want to say that having watched Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, yes, I can see the girl boss propaganda in it. Don't sit here and think that I don't see what they are trying to do with that, because I can see it. It's clear as day. But what I can, when I look at the writing, when I look at the way that this is portrayed, and the struggles that Mrs. Maisel has to go through, Miriam Maisel has to go through into this, I am very much reminded of coming out of school in the early 2000s. In 2008, rather. That actually would probably be the late aughts. But in the late aughts, when the economy was crashing and there were no jobs to be had, and as much as I struggled and worked hard, because I knew that somewhere down there the plan was that I was going to go out and get a job and pay off all my tools and buy a new truck and buy a house, all before 2010. And it just didn't materialize that way for things that were happening in my life outside of my control. There were some things that were happening in my life that were within my control that I did stupidly, but there's a lot of things in there that happen outside of my control, and I can relate to the main character, Miriam Maisel, with that, because in the very first episode of the show, she finds out that not only did they not own their apartment, it was a gift to them, but her husband is walking off with his secretary, and this is in the 50s, by the way, which you don't get divorced in the 50s. So this is in the 50s on top of it, and just life collapses around her. And she still comes out to make the most of it, which is, yes, in spite of the struggles, what I tried to do while I was going through my 20s, when I was going through my hard times. So, bear with me. I know that, again, you're probably going to make fun of me for liking a girl power show like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but here is the trailer for the first season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon.
Who gives a toast at her own wedding? I do. I love this man. And yes, there is shrimp in the egg rolls.
Rabbi, she's kidding.
We could be downtown people, close to the clubs. I thought you wanted to be a cool chick.
I can be a cool chick with a doorman and a Kelvinator Foodorama refrigerator, can't I?
Yes, you can.
Joe left you? Why? What did you do?
Did you ever think you were supposed to be something, and you suddenly realize you're not?
Yes. Married. I was a great wife. I was fun. I can't believe I'm losing him to Penny Pan. That's her name. Penny Pan. I'm sorry, but look at me. Who wouldn't want to come home to this every night? Think Bob Newhart's got a set of these at home? Rickled, maybe. Hey!
15 years I've been working in clubs, okay? Twice have I seen someone deliver the goods. What are you talking about? I'm talking about your act.
I am a mother.
I don't have an act.
You will when we're done.
Hi, everybody.
Heard some uptown chick got arrested doing a set.
What's the crime?
Simulating a sex act while on stage.
That's bullshit.
Mrs. Maisel!
She's gonna do what with her life? Sit around all day long eating bonbons. Is that what you want for her?
Of course not.
That's what's gonna happen.
It's not.
Get out of here!
This comedy thing, it has to work.
I'm gonna count to 5. 1.
That's the end of my show, folks.
2.
Tune in next week when my grandmother steals
3.
my pearls and fucks my boyfriend.
We charge for pictures now.
There's something here about miming a whore tickling a man's testicles.
Oh, I did do
Yeah,
that.
she did. It was fucking funny.
One of the fun parts about this show for me is that, and it's from the creators of the Gilmore Girls, which I have attempted, and I could not get through because the balance between drama and funny it wasn't there for Gilmore Girls, and it's really there. Like, this is panned as a comedy, but the drama side of it balances it out. Like, you get up here and you see the confidence of Maisel on stage, and then sit there and watch as her life completely falls apart. Alex Borstein of Family Guy fame, Lois Griffin, is in that. She does a very good job as the manager. And she even comes out and pulls out the Lois Griffin voice every once in a while just for a joke and a gag. Tony Shalhoub is absolutely hilarious in this, by the way. His fastidious character, which is basically Monk 2.0. It's a good... I mean, yes, I understand. Again, a lot of people... This show was marketed as girl boss, girl power, but I'm going to say you're probably missing out if you don't give this one a chance. So, I'm in Season 2 right now, and I'll keep watching. Season 5 is coming out right now, so go check it out if you have Amazon Prime. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And yes, there are a lot of people of Levante's descent. Let's go on for some more things that I like. Outkick reporting. This one comes to us from Grant. Las Vegas Strip appears to be boycotting Bud Light. Competitors being sold out. Which is good. From David Hookstead. People enjoying the Vegas Strip seem to be doing so without drinking much Bud Light. Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light have been taking non-stop fire ever since teaming up with Dylan Mulvaney for a video that was nothing short of jarring. Sales have taken a monster hit, multiple celebrities have publicly dragged the beer brand, and it doesn't seem like anyone's interested in slowing down. Well, it turns out people crushing it on Vegas might be getting in on the boycott. Popular YouTuber not leaving Las Vegas, real name Steven, is famous for chronicling the craziness of Sin City. He posted a video Tuesday night checking out locations selling alcohol on the Strip, and one thing is clear. There's plenty of Bud Light available, while other popular brands have been picked clean. At one point in the video, he interviews a store employee who claims he went from restocking Bud Light multiple times per shift to rarely doing it at all. When asked point blank if people are buying Bud Light, the unnamed employee replied with no. It seems there's a lot of Bud Light on the shelves in Vegas, and a lot of the competitors are being sold out. So Miller loves Budweiser right now. The popular YouTuber said at the end of the video. You can watch him chronicle the situation on the Vegas Strip below. It's just one guy looking into it, but his findings seem to match up with the stories from around America. And that's the way to do it. Like, you can go off like our friends on the left and make a big threat about a boycott and say, oh, we're going to make everybody we know stop buying your brand, and it's going to be the end of the world for you, and it's going to be all this and done and over, and it's done, and it's good, and we hate you now. But realistically, they're going to cave as soon as either it becomes inconvenient or the company gives them a little bit of an inch of what they want. If you don't like what Bud Light is doing, just silently stop buying it. And yes, there are people out there who are publicly saying that they're not going to buy it. But a lot of them, too, aren't coming out here and saying, oh, everybody get on board and go back and do this. They're just saying, I'm not going to buy it. And then other people are also saying that they're not going to buy it. I never bought Bud Light to begin with. I was a Miller guy. Who's had been a Miller guy. I'm Wisconsin's native son. If I have to drink cheap pea beer, it's going to be Miller. Plain and simple. Again, that's always has been. That's the way that's always been for me. I don't really care for Budweiser, heavy or light. But that's the way to do it. Stop buying it. Yeah, PBR is actually from right down the road from where I am. It is from Wisconsin, you're correct. I didn't like that one that much though either. No, wait, PBR, no, I think is not. I think you're thinking of Old Style. Old Style is the one that I'm thinking of. It's down from the road. Where's PBR from? That's a good question. No, I'm sorry. Before I even finished typing it out, I remember, no, Pabst is from Wisconsin too. It's from Milwaukee as well. It is currently based in San Antonio, but yes, it was established in Milwaukee. As soon as I put Pabst in, I remember the Pabst Theater in Milwaukee. Old style beer is from this side of the state. Yeah, that was a brand is popular through Wisconsin. Yep, was started here as far as I remember. And then, of course, we have my favorite, Spotted Cow, from New Glarus. That's the one I like. So yeah, and again, the big one there is if you don't like it, don't buy it. They'll get it. They'll figure it out. You don't have to pressure people. Alright, and we've got one more thing that I like, and then we're going to do a couple things that I hate, including, by the way, I think what Mr. Palpatine has been waiting for the entire show. Because I told him in a Discord DM that I was going to talk about the Crowder thing for the second thing that I hate tonight. From WKRN.com. Calls for Covenant Shooters manifesto may be answered soon. Which means that the FBI is probably done writing it at this point. But, I mean, regardless, no matter where you fall on this, how much tinfoil you put into it, or what you think is going to be in there, any other manifesto that we would have had at a point like this would have long since been released by this point. We would have known every detail of the shooter's past. We would have known everybody he's been related to, everybody that person's been in contact with for the last 25 years. If that person's been alive for 25 years by that point. We would have read the manifesto, and the manifesto would have been blocked by Google already for being hate speech. In any other situation, other than this one. But regardless, it's time for this to get out. It's time for us to see what's in there. I'm sure there are going to be calls to not read it because it's all hate speech or this, that, or the next thing, or again, it's devastating to the narrative, but they will go find a completely different excuse for that. But it does seem like it's going to be coming. It does seem like the pressure campaign is going to work. Or, and again, as definitely not advice, Stephanie over on Twitter put it, maybe the FBI is just finishing up writing it. One of the two. Let's do a couple things that I hate. Thing that I hate, number one, is the backpedaling. These people are now going to try to pretend that they didn't keep us locked in to our homes, attempt to keep us from going to work if we didn't get the holy jab. The Blaze reporting, show me a school that I shut down. I never did. Fauci denies responsibility for COVID lockdowns, school closures. He is technically right. In legal technicality, he is technically correct. He was not responsible for the lockdowns and the school closures. The individual administrations voted on whether to take his advice and did it on their own. The locality governments did so on their own. But the excuse that everybody was giving for the vast majority of this pandemic, or whatever it is that you want to call it, was the fact that we've got to follow Fauci's guidance. We've got to do it because Fauci says we're going to do it. Legally, in a court of law, legally, it was the administrators, the locals, the business leaders, etc. that did the lockdowns. And any lawyer would come back out here if there was a lawsuit that came to it or a criminal charge that came to it and would come to the same conclusion. But again, we're doing all these different entities, we're doing so because this mousy man right here told them to. We're following the science. In an interview published Tuesday by the New York Times Magazine, St. Anthony of Fauci, hallowed be his name, the patron saint of medicine, insisted that he was not responsible for the country's response to the pink pox, including the economic lockdown and school closures. Fauci claimed to be the personification of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's recommendations. When people say Fauci shut the economy down, it wasn't Fauci, he stated, when asked by interviewer David Wallace-Wells about the government's heavy-handed response to the pinko pox. But show me a school that I shut down, and show me a factory that I shut down, Fauci continued. Never, I never did. I gave a public health recommendation that echoed the CDC's recommendation, and people made the decision based on that. But I never criticized the people who had made decisions one way or another. Yes, you did. That is a lie. That actually is a lie. Fauci repeatedly defended the CDC's handling of the virus while noting that the response could have been better. The recently retired National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases director admitted that something clearly went wrong, but he blamed many of the failures on the culture war. I think anything that instigated or intensified the culture wars just made things worse. And I have to be honest with you, when it comes to the masking, I don't know. But I do know that the culture wars have been really, really tough from a public health standpoint. So he is going to try to weasel his way out of it. Randy Weingarten is actually trying to weasel her way out of it too, but she got popped with the community notes, reminding her that no, she was actually in favor of these school lockdowns. Hey, no spoilers. I haven't read that book yet, Grant. Reminds me of the scene in Atlas Shrugged where everyone avoids being responsible for the train accident. It is on my list of things to read. I'm going to be a real libertarian. I'm going to use Atlas Shrugged as my Bible. Alright, and now for what I think a lot of people have been waiting for at the end of the show. My thoughts on the Crowder thing. Now, I've leaked a little bit of this onto Twitter. I have. Because I can't just sit back and watch it anymore. A little bit of context for the people that don't know. It was revealed not by Crowder, not by Heidi Crowder, but by internet sleuths that Steven Crowder and his wife are getting a divorce. And there has been a lot of speculation, and I mean there's a lot of speculation based on how he acted when he was in the negotiations with the Blaze. A lot of people, I'm sure that Lauren Chen has probably weighed in on it by this point because, as she always says when Crowder becomes controversial in the news, I know Crowder, I'm friends with Crowder. I'm sure she's weighed in on this. And what we saw with the temper tantrum with the Daily Wire, too. Even though I was fully in support of Crowder for that, it still reeked of a temper tantrum. The content was good. The decision was good. But the way it was handled at the end was not good. Yes, they could have offered him more money. Yes, they could have offered him more creative control. But again, he came out and said, well, this is a big company here. Then it's the Daily Wire. And they're going to come out here and they're going to try to force me to do ad reads that I hate to do and this and that and the everything. But I want to say this about the divorce. I'm not going to weigh in on that. And I really honestly think that the people who are should be ashamed of themselves. And that's me being completely honest from the bottom of my heart. This is a man who is losing everything right now, whether by his own fault or for something that the media has done. We have snippets, and Palpatine sent me a video link that I'm not going to play on the air. We have video snippets, we have allegations, and we have all of the classic signs of people coming out here and saying he was abusive, he was this, he was that, the next thing. And other so-called Christian conservative creators who are out there yelling how horribly unchristian it is of him to go back out and get a divorce, whether or not he was the one that initiated it or not. I get that he has looked down on other people for doing this. I get it. And it was wrong when he did it too, but I'm not going to retaliate against somebody who's done wrong by doing wrong to that person. This is a decision between the married couple. No amount of weighing in from any of us in the influence sphere is going to change the outcome of this. We don't know, by the way, this is another thing, and yes, I'm sure that Steven Crowder is a hard person to work for, but we don't know if any of this has been initiated because of public or personal safety concerns. This is a high-profile person who gets death threats probably daily. You know, remember Marjorie Taylor Greene and her husband are in that same boat. They're splitting up because of the fact that somebody tried to break into her house or get them swatted. And with her being a sitting congresswoman and constantly being under that threat, he decided he didn't want to be there, and that was an amicable breakup. I don't think that's the case in Crowder. But honestly, it's none of my business either. And I hope more people will actually get onto this train and let these people divorce in peace, if that's their ultimate decision. I hope it's not, because they have kids. But if differences can't be reconciled, if mom and dad can't get along and they go their separate ways, yes, the children are going to suffer. They're keeping their children out of the spotlight in the midst of all this too. Let these people go through one of the hardest decisions of their lives in peace. And let's go back to attacking Crowder on his cringy ass content. Let's be realistic. There is no absence of stuff to criticize him on for what he puts on camera every day. In final closing to this, before I head out of here for the night, this is a big part of this, and I understand again, one of the criticisms of people like me who say that let them go divorce in peace is the fact that she spent a lot of the time on his show and in the public eye as well. Which I think was probably stupid on his part. But, I mean, there was a reason that while I was engaged, most of you, like, I didn't say my fiance's name, and we waited a month and a half before I made the announcement that my engagement had ended on this program. Because it was a decision between my ex-fiance and I. Not the audience. I mean, Elaine knew. But she was at the time probably one of my closest friends. And I do miss that about Elaine, by the way. But she was one of my closest friends at the time, so she knew just about everything that was going on in my life. But we separated privately. And I grieved privately. And I hope that Crowder gets the same respect. And I know that he won't. I do. And I hate the fact that something like this has to be a public spectacle. I do. And that is things that I like and things that I hate. I have not seen the video, but I'm aware of the video. Alright, let's head out of here for the day. I've said my piece on families being destroyed enough. Where's my outro music? There it is. Alright, well that was an interesting way to end the show here. And, you know, again, that's truly something that I hate, so that fits right on the segment. But we're done. We're out of here. We got through with everything, too. So we'll be back here tomorrow to check out the news, more headlines, more contemporary. We'll be looking at the Twitter trending at the end of the show and seeing what happens in the next 22 hours. I'd be willing to bet that there's probably some pushback on DeSantis. We'll have probably some new polls coming out here, especially with this new law coming out here, and probably a whole lot more, especially considering we are coming into election season right now. So stay tuned, come back in, and go check out some of the other programs that I pointed out at the top of the show, the R-Rated Conservative, or maybe Tweets by Brit. If you're over on Twitter, go check out Mr. Behavior. And we're going to go find somebody over on the Twitch side to go and raid so that the show doesn't stop going. Come back and join me here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. We will see you then, and until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.